It began on a crisp autumn evening when I decided to take a shortcut through the old Oak Grove Cemetery. The ancient graves and looming statues, shadowed by twisted trees, had always fascinated me. My friends often joked about the cemetery being haunted, but I dismissed such tales as nothing more than urban legends. I was about to discover how wrong I was. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the air grew colder, and the fading light cast eerie shadows across the overgrown paths. I tightened my scarf and quickened my pace, eager to get home before dark. It was then that I first heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible over the rustling leaves. "Stay." The word was so soft, so unexpected, that I stopped in my tracks. Looking around, I saw only the aged tombstones standing sentinel. It must have been the wind, I reasoned, and continued walking. But the whisper followed, growing louder with each step. "Stay with us!" I spun around, my heart pounding. The cemetery was empty, the silence broken only by my own breathing. Yet the feeling of being watched was undeniable. With a shiver, I turned away and hurried along the path, my eyes fixed on the exit. That's when I saw her, a pale figure in a tattered gown, standing by the old willow tree. Her eyes were hollow, her expression mournful. She raised a hand as if beckoning me to her side. Paralyzed by fear, I could only stare as she slowly vanished, leaving behind a cold gust that whispered through the trees. Shaking off my dread, I broke into a run, desperate to leave the cemetery behind. But with each turn, the path seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally. Panic set in as I realized I was lost. The familiar landmarks, the carefully lined rows of graves, had morphed into a maze of shadows and whispering winds. "Never leave." The voice was clear now, a chorus of whispers that echoed in the chill air. My breaths came in ragged gasps as I stumbled over roots and stones. Ahead, a faint light glimmered, a beacon of hope. I pushed forward, only to find myself back at the willow tree where the apparition had appeared. Tears of frustration and fear welled in my eyes. It was then that I understood. The cemetery didn't want me to leave. The dead, lonely and forgotten, clung to the living, craving warmth and company. Determined to escape their grasp, I remembered an old trick my grandmother once told me. If ever lost, one should walk straight in one direction, never wavering. Clutching my coat tighter, I chose a path and walked, ignoring the whispers that begged and pleaded. "Stay. Stay with us." I walked for what felt like hours, the eerie glow of the cemetery lamps my only guide. Just when despair nearly overtook me, the path finally led to the wrought iron gates of the exit. Relief flooded through me as I pushed them open and stepped out onto the quiet street. Once home, I bolted the door and sank against it, trembling. I knew then I would never take that shortcut again. Sleep was elusive that night, and when it came, it was fitful and haunted by dreams of shadowy figures and whispering voices. The next morning, driven by a need for answers, I visited the local library. Buried in old newspaper clippings, I found my chilling answer. Decades ago, a fire had swept through the cemetery, claiming the lives of a caretaker and several mourners who had been attending a funeral. It was said their spirits were bound to the cemetery, their presence forever marked by unexplained whispers and sightings. Chilled to the bone, I realized my encounter was not merely a figment of my imagination, but a brush with the cemetery's tragic past. Those souls had reached out to me, not out of malice, but from a deep-seated loneliness and despair. Now, as the leaves turn and the days shorten, I sometimes pass by the old cemetery gates. I never enter, but I offer a silent prayer for those restless spirits. And sometimes, just on the edge of hearing, I think I can hear a whisper in return. A soft, sorrowful echo of gratitude from the shadows of the old Oak Grove Cemetery.